That lady doctor come to see me. She put her arms around me.
Time, Simon, this, as I said to you, this kind of went under the radar last night. I was actually listening to you last night with Danny and Sean Custis. You were in top form, I have to say. But on talkSPORT 2, and this was quite a coup. Faye Carruthers, one of her guests last night, Faye, Eva Carneiro, former doctor at Chelsea. And of course, if you wind the clock back to that time, all those years ago, Simon, Eva Carneiro came on the field of play when Mourinho was manager. Mourinho was none too happy because it was a game that Chelsea were chasing, and she came on to administer treatment to a player, and Mourinho told her off in a very public manner. The two-parted company, but it all got very legal and extremely acrimonious. Now, Eva Carneiro has virtually said nothing on that topic until now, but she opened up to Faye Carruthers last night, and she said, sure, she still remembers the incident very vividly, and it still very definitely still hurts.
Well, I think it's impossible to go through something like what I went through for the best part of a year of my life and not be changed by it. But it hasn't put me off at all. I mean, I think it's fair to say I needed time off. I needed to enjoy my job again. And be a doctor again without the complications of being in the limelight, because I was in every paper in every country for a really long time, and I wasn't at all comfortable with that. I mean, I think what's left perhaps the way it's changed is, like, I think certain individuals in football perhaps still want to treat me like I did something wrong, and it was clear that I was only doing my job. But I understand it helps to align yourself with those more powerful. I get that. But in the end, you know, like I think it's nearly 5 years now, and you know, I recently came across that quote by Martin Luther King. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. That still hurts, and I think whether it's, you know, in this sport, whether it's in subjects of racism or child abuse or athlete safeguarding and respect for medical treatment, a change of culture is needed. And because we passionately love this sport, but a change of culture is needed to change the things that are ugly about it. And I think, you know, I urge fans, and I mean, I think we have a new generation of players that will fight for the right, but fans also shouldn't be passive in asking for this change, because in the end, it will actually serve to protect even those that are so heavily invested in it as a sport. So I'm a strong advocate. What has made me more passionate about medical governance. I'm constantly boring people talking about it, but I don't think you know, that medical governance, that the change of culture is impossible in football. I really don't think so, especially with new generations of managers coming through, the new generations of athletes who are bright, who are well-versed in the ways of the world. I think change is possible, and I think it's a really exciting development for the future.
That was Eva Carneiro speaking to Faye Carruthers last night. I mean, Simon, if memory serves me right, Eva Carneiro and another physiotherapist, I think John Fern, they came in for real criticism at the time from Mourinho, because she and Fern went onto the pitch to attend to, I think the player was Eden Hazard, when he felt injury, but it wasn't of a serious nature, according to Mourinho. And Mourinho was annoyed because it meant that Chelsea, who'd had a player sent off during the match, were temporarily left with 8 outfield players. So she copped it. I don't know if Fern did. And then much further down the line, she left her position as first-team doctor with Chelsea. I think that was about September after that. So a language expert was brought in because he studied the mouth movements,
I remember,
as to what Mourinho was calling Carneiro, and it was none too complimentary, as you might imagine.
Right.
And as she just said to Faye there, her life virtually changed overnight, because she was front page news on every newspaper, not just here in England, but all over the shop. It all ended very untidily and very badly for Eva Carneiro. At least she's still working. She can look back at it.
When did she become front page news? When she took Chelsea to court, or for unfair dismissal, or when the incident happened itself? Because my reaction, and I'd be interested to see what your reaction was as well, was at the time I looked at it and said, well, he's well within his right to be annoyed. I've seen many, many a times, and I don't want to make this a gender issue, but I've seen many a times managers of mine at Palace lose the rag with physios during a game or during certain other aspects of the football curriculum, and I didn't really see the strength of, okay, it's a public domain business. The real segue, the reasons why this caught the imagination is because it's Mourinho, because Mourinho is gold dust, he's a powder keg, everything around him, is amplified. But I couldn't see for myself at the time what was the issue. Okay, he was unhappy. Okay, he let her know. But I didn't understand it.
But it was a way he let her know. It was the way he let her know. It was the words he allegedly used, because if I remember rightly, there was an audio recording. It was examined, but it apparently didn't contain the words which the expert said Mourinho had used.
Right.
But of course, organisations like the campaign group Women in Football were up in arms.
But are we saying that the words were, okay, let's put aside there might be some bad language in there, because I'm just surmising. Were these words specific to her gender?
Oh, yes, very definitely.
They were. Okay.
And that Mourinho had called a phrase in Portuguese again. That was all alleged at the time, but it was the.
Yeah, I know the word.
It was the collateral damage.
With respect, I know that word, and that word can be used in conjunction with anybody. It doesn't have to make it specific to the sex. But the challenge for me is that, with respect to Eva, she had her say, she had her day in court. And whilst I understand that she still has a right to continue having her say, the real link to this, the segue is this, is because Mourinho's in the middle of it. And the idea...
sorry to interrupt you, Simon. Is the real nub of this not the fact that it was a woman doctor, and here he was sounding off in an extremely uncomplimentary manner,
but the argument,
and abusive manner to her.
But the argument would be...
Allegedly.
The argument would be that would he have operated in the same way with a man? Would he have spoken robustly and in such a terms? And I can't answer that because I don't know the workings of Jose Mourinho's mind. I do know that at times I've encountered people in football. I remember one of my managers going to manage a club saying there isn't any place for women in football, and I wanted to tell Karen that Brady when he was going to manage Birmingham. But there is a difference. People's opinions change and outlooks change, and I've seen people in football that have a certain view towards gender, but I just don't know if it's there so much. I had female physios at Palace. I had women very much involved in football because, again, it comes down to, from my viewpoint, it was about ability. It was about being good at your job. And I wonder, for the purposes of other people's agenda, whether Jose Mourinho's main thrust, and I'm throwing it out there and I'm not saying it's right, was that she wasn't very good at her job in his eyes. So his issue was that she wasn't very good at her job, and others wanted to conflate that issue to make it a gender issue because the obvious thing in the middle of it was there was gender. I'm not saying that's right, Jim. I'm pontificating on it.
I get that, but she was doing her job, as was Fern. No, they were they were twice summoned onto the pitch by the referee Michael Oliver.
I think that ultimately there is a relationship between a manager and a physio, and an expectation level of they know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And in this instance, I don't believe he's routinely targeted her out. She's done something, or they've done something that he was uncomfortable with. Right?
But there was an injured player on the ground. The referee summoned them on, and she was doing her job. She's a team doctor.
His viewpoint is that ultimately the injury, as it was proven, was not an injury that ultimately needed them to go on the pitch, because what Mourinho wanted them to do...
Who knew that at the time?
Well...
How could Mourinho know that at the time?
If the end outcome is that they didn't really need to go on the pitch, then the end outcome proves the theory before it, which is they didn't. Because if Mourinho was right and the player got up and could have carried on rather than having to come off the pitch, whilst they couldn't have known that, it does to some extent prove his theory. But I don't know whether this is about Mourinho, whether there's a lot more to it, whether Mourinho campaigned against her, because I can't really imagine Jose Mourinho in the power base that he has inside a football club that has anybody in that working environment that he doesn't want there in the first place. So it must have really been about he didn't feel that she was up to the job in some way or shape or description, or in that moment she was up to the job. And then, of course, what happened was the great media got hold of it, spun it up into a bigger story.
Simon, are you kidding? It was massively
robust
public.
Robust words.
It was massively public.
Robust words between people. Shock, horror, awe. Somebody spoke badly to one another in football.
It was live on TV, going out to God knows how many countries.
And so my point is made
precise. Was doing its job.
If that was in the dressing room, how many times have I seen play? Follow my logic. If that was in the dressing room, right, would the same level of feeling happen between the two individuals, i.e., the woman physiotherapist and Mourinho? It might have been said, forgot, because he did it at the wrong time. His natural reaction was fury, rage, didn't curtail it, authentic reaction because he was angry about a set of circumstances. If he'd have been angry in the dressing room, would it have ever seen the light of day? Would we have ever heard this? Would there ever been a big fallout?
Who knows, but it wasn't. It was very public.
I go back to my point.
Yeah.
It's because the media took it and were able to spin it up to bigger than it really was. Hold on. And then you've got interested parties with agendas going, hang on a second, this isn't right. This is about women in football.
But it wasn't right.
We'll serve our agenda.
But it wasn't right. How could it have been right? She got the full support at the time of the medical chairman of FIFA, Michel de Hoog.
In this woke mentality, people can't tell people what to do or how to do it in a robust fashion. But listen, I'm not...
Can you honestly argue that Eva Carneiro, at that moment, was not doing her job?
Well, clearly I can't argue because the courts found in her favour. But in the instance, my take at the time was, I'm not sure that she did what he would want her to do, and at the end of the day, he's the manager of the team. Then you've got the balance, which is, hang on a second, hold on, this is a Hippocratic oath they have, so her responsibility is not to the manager of the team, it's the well-being of the player. And we go round and round in this argument. I'm not invested enough to have much of an argument with you about it. I just look at it and say, if it weren't Mourinho, and it wasn't this situation, it probably wouldn't have got as much interest as it did.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's Mourinho that lights up this particular
But if it wasn't Mourinho, would it have happened at all?
Well, you and I don't know, up and down the country, if there were more female physiotherapists inside football dugout, how many times it would or wouldn't happen. We would then want to argue about how many women physiotherapists we should have. That will be the next argument, because we'll need quotas for those next, according to certain people's logic.
Imagine if you were a female physio wanting to get into football and you happened to be watching that live match that afternoon.
You would think this is a robust industry, and I would hope that my manager could convey his feelings of dissatisfaction to me in private rather than in public.
Yeah. Okay, but tell me it wasn't the media overblowing it. Tell me it wasn't. Please tell me it wasn't as we head to this break. The match was broadcast live to God knows how many countries. It was very public, and the media covered it.
The media do what they do.
Which is?
They covered it in the way they wanted to.
The words spoken there this lunchtime by tabloid columnist Simon Jordan.
That lady doctor come to see me. She put her arms around me.